Have you ever wondered how many different sound jobs it takes to create a film or television show? By the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of each role and how knowing this can benefit you and your journey in the industry. Stick around as I break down the roles from dialogue editor to Foley artist and show you where you might fit in. Let's dive in. Hey friends, welcome back to Mastering Post-Production Sound. My name is Joel. I'm a sound re-recording mixer and supervising sound editor. I have been part of the post-production sound industry for the past 16 years, and I'm here to help you navigate the post-production sound industry. Let's dive in. Today we're talking about jobs in Hollywood. I'm going to break down each role. We're going to start from production, pre-production, and go all the way down to post. Believe it or not, there are a lot of different jobs. When I first started in this industry, I was very much like you. I did it all. I literally had to teach myself Pro Tools. You know, I was coming from a music background. I got my degree in music. I fell in love with scoring short films. I loved writing music. And that was sort of my ticket into post-production sound. I always tell people post-production sound sort of just fell in my lap. And I fell in my lap because a friend of mine said, "Hey, Joel, I need some sound design." I had no idea what sound design was at the time. I said, sure, couldn't be more different than composing. I'm just composing with sounds. So I got the bug early and I started. But back then, I kind of had to do it all. I had to get the sound effects, cut the dialogue. I even remember recording Foley in my house. And one of the selling points for me early on when I was trying to do everything was I could also score. So that helped me. It gave me an advantage to get these gigs from maybe somebody else because I was sort of like a one-stop shop. But the interesting thing was once I kind of transitioned to really start from the ground up at a Hollywood mom and pop post-production sound facility, I realized, wow, when I saw the sound professionals, they were actually doing very specialized jobs. And I was like, what? This is kind of crazy because I'm used to coming from a place where I did everything. But when I got a job in a sound house supporting other mixers and TV shows, I mean, at the time, I think there were shows like Bones and Numbers, if anybody knows what those are. But each show had different jobs. Like the mixers were there and then there were sound editors. And I was like, wait a second, they don't do it all themselves? No, they don't. So we're going to break these down right now. And we'll just go off the cuff. I have a huge list here of things. I'll briefly tell you what the job title is and then a little bit of the responsibility that they have. Because here's the thing, friend, if you're just starting your journey, let's say you're in college right now or you're fresh out of film school or fresh out of audio school and you're like, okay, I am a sound designer, a composer, an editor, a mixer, all these things. Let me tell you, that's a lot of things. When I first got started, I had that title. It was Joel D. Catalan, composer, sound designer, sound editor, mixer. And I remember somebody told me, said, that's a lot of titles. Like, how about you just pick one, okay? And here's my advice. After we go through this list, I want you to ask yourself, which one of these do I gravitate towards? Because oftentimes when we look at something that says all these different titles, we usually go, okay, like which one is the thing that they really know? So let's break this down. Let's start with pre-production, okay? Usually with pre-production, that's kind of the time when a sound supervisor would be brought on, okay? So sound supervisor, and usually their job is to kind of come up with the overall strategy for the production, okay? Usually they're in contact with the director. If it's a film, you're talking about your ideas, the big picture things. This is what we want to do. We want to go record some really cool sounds in the desert of wind, everything. You got to start early. So the role of the sound supervisor is the one who is basically in charge of the overall sound job and the sound team as a whole, okay? And that's usually for post-production. But pre-production as well, you're talking about different plans and like that. But production, let's talk about production. You have the sound mixer or the location sound mixer. And the location sound mixer is usually the one who's in charge of capturing all of the audio on production. And you're usually going to have a couple team members. That you'll have a boom operator and a utility sound. Now, the boom operator, pretty self-explanatory, but if those of you don't know, boom operator is usually the person who operates the mic boom. They're the ones, standing there with the big, sock of the big wind sock right there, and they're like, make sure they're getting all the dialogue. But the production mixer usually will stand somewhere. They may be in a tent or off on the side, and they have their mixer there, and they're sitting there making sure they're getting all the microphones. But the boom op is there making sure, usually in really tough positions, trying to, using all their strength to get the audio. Oftentimes, they'll also have a sound utility person, and the sound utility person will help with cables, setting up microphones, and any other kind of equipment that's needed for the production shoot. So production mixer, those usually come with a boom op and a sound utility person. Now, there are productions, really low budget stuff where one person's doing everything, okay? You'll see the person with headphones and they have the mixer on there, on themselves, and they're doing the mic, they're doing everything. So, but we're talking at the level where I'm mixing and my colleagues are mixing, big movies, big TV shows, you usually have a team, okay? Again, sound mixer, production sound mixer, boom op, and utility sound. Now, as we kind of look ahead in your production, we start looking towards post-production, we're going to break down a couple of these roles. So first thing I want to talk about is dialogue editor, okay? Your dialogue editor is the person who's responsible for editing the dialogue, cleaning up the dialogue tracks, removing any of the unwanted noise, making sure you get as much clarity in your tracks. So, dialogue editor. We also have ADR mixers. Okay, we're going to cover just all the dialogue stuff. ADR mixer, ADR editor, okay? The ADR mixer, ADR editor, very important jobs, okay? ADR mixer, and that's a tough job. A tough job is you have to sit there in the booth, you hang with the talent, you make sure you have all the cues. Sometimes you can be dealing with talent that doesn't really want to be there, or sometimes, you just got to be on your toes all the time. You never want to miss a really good take. Maybe they're practicing, and you always want to grab each take. I remember I had a job doing mobile ADR at Culver Studios, or wherever production was. Some of the most stressful days of my young career was mobile ADR. ADR is hard. Not as hard as production mixing. Production mixers, you guys have it really hard. It's one of the toughest jobs ever. But the ADR mixer is the one's going to be responsible for making sure the talent is mic'd up. They get all those re-recorded lines. Maybe the lines, have mic noise from the day. They're unusable. You have a huge plane, coming over. Those get usually cued by the sound supervisor. They're flagged like, hey, we need to take care of this. Maybe the picture editor says we need to replace these lines, whatever, here's a list. The ADR mixer is the one who's manning the board, and they're making sure that we get all the lines from the talent, okay? Now, the ADR editor is usually a different person, but they are... It can be, it just depends. We'll go overall kind of at the end, how you can cover a lot of these too. But the ADR editor is then taking the dialogue that is recorded in the studio and integrating them into the edit for the sound re-recording mixers. So they go there and they make sure they have the right takes and that they're synced perfectly to the film. Sometimes they'll have to stretch the audio or time compress the audio, but their job is to make sure that the stuff that was recorded can be in sync with what we're either seeing, or if it's on the back of their head, it's timed perfectly so that we don't cut from them and their lips are not moving and they still hear stuff. So ADR editing is another job. Sometimes here's an interesting one. Sound effects librarian. Okay, I know I met a colleague of mine introduced me to somebody who was the sound librarian at Universal. This is a little while back, and they are usually responsible for organization of large libraries of sound effects. And at a place like Warner Brothers or big place like Sony, Universal, they may have really, really large libraries, and you need somebody to manage that and organize that. So that is a job out there. So if that's sounds interesting to you, that's something. Let's talk about Foley. Foley artists and Foley mixers. So the artist is the talent, okay? They are the ones who are creating the actual sounds. They're performing, whether it's cloth pass, and I'll do my best impersonation of Foley. Here's cloth. Okay, they're doing passes like that, or they're actually like handling stuff like. So their job is to create new original sounds to picture. They're watching the actual picture, what's going on, and they're recreating that. They're also doing our favorite footsteps, footsteps or hand pats. The reason they have to do that stuff is usually to help support the soundtrack, but also when it comes to dubbing the film or the television show into another language, we have to remove that dialogue. And when you remove the production dialogue, guess what you lose? The first thing you lose, all the production effects, all the pats, the natural footsteps that we love, or sound effects that happen to be tied to dialogue. When you remove that, now you have to fill it in with actual re-recorded sounds that are timed and performed to precision to the picture. So now we can go and dub a different language in Italian or in Spanish and have all the elements that were covered in the original production. So Foley artists are magicians. It's amazing. A Foley mixer is the one who is responsible for recording and mixing the Foley that is performed by the Foley artists, okay? They are the ones who are saying, okay, guys, this next cue, here we go. Let me play it for you. Usually the artist is separated in, they're in their studio. Foley mixers on the other side with a console. They're showing them the cue. They're queuing it up from them with their beeps. Usually what will happen is they'll play it, and then there's these beeps. Beep, beep, beep. And now you're in record. They're making sure things are nudged in sync to make sure, anything that the Foley artist needs to perform. So that's a very important role. Foley mixers are awesome. Let's move to sound effects. So a couple things. Sound effects editor and sound designer. They are and can be the same thing or not. Now here we go. Let's talk about this real quickly. Sound design is different than sound editing, but sound editors are usually sound designers as well. Or rather, let's put it this way. If you're a sound designer, you're a sound editor, if that makes sense. Let's dive a little bit into this. Think about sound effects editors as someone who's making sure that all the hard effects are there. The door slams, the car starts, the punches, things like that. Sound design, I want you to think about recreating things that maybe don't exist. So that would be creature sounds, voices. Maybe they take a character that's supposed to have like this really deep, demonic voice, taking the sounds, and they're manipulating the sounds to create something that doesn't exist. You have to, by nature, be a sound editor to be a designer, if that makes sense. Some people are more gifted toward that design. Others are not. Like, I'm a great sound editor. I'm not a great sound designer. I just haven't spent hours doing that. I work with a couple guys that are just fantastic sound designers. It just comes naturally to them. They're like, oh yeah, that cool abstract thing, boom, here we go. I'm going to create it with all these different layers and whatnot, and there you go. So sound effects editor, sound designer. We'll usually have two different ones. Sometimes you'll have one person. Like this latest project that I've been working on, I hired one sound effects editor who is a fantastic designer and he does them both. So you could really focus on one or the other. You can be really great at both and do it all. So those are two different options. I throw music editor in there in too, because music editors, even though they're not hired by the sound facility, they are such an integral part of our dubs, because without our music editors, that's trying to cut up a score and move things around we can do it, sure, but usually a music editor is working hand in hand with the composer, and they know their scores intimately and know exactly what to do. So music editing, if you love music and you love sound and sound editing, that's a job to consider. Let's see. Then we can't do this without, my goodness, this is a really, really important role. Mix techs, sound recordists, aka sound recordists. Mix tech, their role is to assist the sound re-recording mixers, okay? And we're going to get to them in a second. But they make sure that this stage is running. They support it. They're the ones importing all the files, all the sessions, backing stuff up, making sure things are delivered. Such an important job. So mix techs. Now, mix tech job, one of the fastest ways to move up, or usually a step up, you go up to, which is the final one on my list here, is a sound re-recording mixer. The sound re-recording mixer is the role responsible for now taking all of the elements that have been prepared from the sound team, for the dialogue editor, the ADR editors, the Foley, everything. And we sit down and we take all that material, we balance it against each other, against the screen, often with our filmmakers in our presence, guiding us. We have a lot of responsibility, and we're juggling a lot of material. So sound re-recording mixer is the final stop here. We're the ones who are trusted. We get that privilege to be trusted with everybody's work, with the vision of our filmmaker, and our goal is just to help tell the story and make it sound awesome. Just make it sound cool, right? So that's a sound re-recording mixer. A couple other just honorable mention specialized roles that we don't really get too much into. Audio engineers, we can't do big stages like Warner Brothers and Sony and Technicolor and Formosus. They all have stage engineers. They're the ones who come fix the console when it's broken, or there's a light out on the stage. Like, we have to have sound engineers. So if you're more of a technical electronics kind of person, that might be something to consider. An audio engineer. Audio restoration specialist. Audio restoration. Gosh, I did a stint once, a summer job at Paramount working in audio restoration, and I was re-leveling audio specs for foreign language, like French versions of, it was like not Dumb and Dumber. Party Time, excellent. Gosh, you know it. You know what I'm talking. My brain, you guys. Wayne's World 2, I think it was. So I was doing that. So there's a whole department of people who know about sound mixing, sound editing, whose job is to restore some of these classics that we know. And there's a whole job description that goes into that, from using tools, restoration tools, to take out crackles and to fix different things, anomalies. That's a whole nother thing. But if you're interested in that, that's like a job out there. So, I'm not getting into game audio and things like that, because we kind of just focus with post-production. But these are some of the jobs. If any of these interest you, I want you to know, you can make a living and have a career being just an ADR mixer, or just an effects editor, or just a dialogue editor, ADR supervisor. You don't have to do it all. That was one of the biggest surprises for me as I became a mix tech, realizing, I'm so used to doing everything myself. Like, these mixers just come in and just mix. And then at 7 o'clock, they go home and That's all? Like, what? I don't understand it. It's so compartmentalized. Like there's jobs for everybody. That blew my mind. So if you're stressing that you need to know all, when you come in, you don't. Does it help to know a lot? Yes, it does. And I was kind of hinting at this earlier, but if if you know your way around Pro Tools, you know how to edit, you kind of can do a lot of these things. Like I've done my stint as a mix tech, as an effects editor, dialogue editing, ADR mixing and ADR editing, supervising. I've sort of done them all except, let's see, production mixing. Terrified of production mixing. I don't know anything about production mixing, which is, I think I'm going to give you, that's the hardest job right there. So any production mixers out there who are watching, you got the hardest job. It's crazy. It's live. We love sound re-recording because we make a mistake, we could stop, back it up, and do it again and punch it. So, but these are all the different jobs, So let's go over what kind of jobs again. Supervising sound editor or sound supervisor, production mixer, and in the production mixers you can be either a boom op or a sound utility, dialogue editor, ADR mixer, ADR editor, sound effects librarian, Foley artist, Foley mixer, sound effects editor, sound designer, music editor, mix tech, or a sound re-recording mixer. Lots of different jobs. So which one do you gravitate towards? My advice would be learn a lot, right? Learn them all. But really ask yourself, which is the one that if everything could go well and I could get it, you were guaranteed to succeed, which role would you pick? I want you to leave it in the comments below. Or if you're watching this and you are doing that and you've gone through this process, what did you settle on? Like for myself, sound recording mixing has been my bread and butter for many, many, many years. So I would put that in the comments, right? What calls to you? Learn a lot. Stay curious. Curiosity leads to learning and growth. That's what helped me in the beginning. I learned so much by just messing around and trying different things and teaching myself. And I'm so grateful that I landed on Sound Re-Recording Mixer. It is a gift to sit down and mix my editor's work because they've put so much work into that. And it really is an honor to be trusted with all the material to then tell the filmmaker's story through sound. Oh, I love it. Yeah, I love my job. It doesn't feel like work. Every time I sit down, it is new. It is fresh. It is exciting. So there you go. Many different jobs and roles that you can pick. I bet you didn't know there were so many different roles, right, that went into making the soundtrack for a film or TV show. So if something calls to you, do it. Let me know in the comments. Which one is it? What calls to you? What is the one that you are all in on? Because it's good to learn it all, but eventually to focus on one. Friends, that's all I got for this episode of Mastering Post-Production Sound. I want to thank you for checking out this video. And if you are new here and you're starting your journey, I have a free gift for you. It is the 5 core principles that I believe every single post-production professional should know and master. Head on over to masteringpostproductionsound.com/insidersguide to grab your free copy. Again, friend, thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing Mastering Post-Production Sound. I will see you in next week's video.